Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is the DBT and BigQuery crash course. If you are a new beginner to DBT and BigQuery, then this video is for you. BigQuery is a Google serverless and fully managed data warehouse. It offers you fast SQL queries, no infrastructure to manage, and real-time analytics. While DBT, on the other hand, is a data transformation tool that is SQL-based. It offers version control for transformations and built-in testing and documentation. How do you set up and integrate DBT with BigQuery? We are going to start by installing DBT on our local machine and set up BigQuery on the cloud. We are also going to go with the linking and authorization of our DBT with BigQuery. And additionally, we are going to create some models that we are going to be using for our transformation on DBT. We are going to run and test our models and also document them with commands like dbt run, dbt test, and dbt doc serve. So stay with me on this journey and let's get started. Setting up dbt is pretty easy. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new project. I'll call this dbt crash course. I'm going to use Python 3.9 for this, and I'm going to wait for PyCharm to do the initial bootstrapping. I'll go to my terminal on PyCharm. Installing DBT is as simple as doing pip install DBT, just like this. But because we're going to be using another package called BigQuery, I'm going to be adjusting this. Instead of using pip install DBT, we're going to be going for DBT BigQuery. So if you type this in PyPy, you see DBT BigQuery in here, and this is how you can install the DBT BigQuery. So I just need to copy this, and into my terminal, I'm going to paste this, install. And by default, I have access to the DBT core engine and also the DBT BigQuery plugin. To verify that, I can write DBT and I can do version. That's variance. Is DBT version. Okay. This gives us the current version of DBT and also the plugins that are available to be used by DBT. So right now I'm having DBT 1.66 installed and plugins for DBT 1.67. Now with this installed, the next thing we just need to do is to write DBT init, and I'm going to say I'll call this DBT crash course. Okay. Now it's going to get us through with a couple of questions saying the version number. I'll type 1. So it's asking me what type of authentication method that I want to use. For this tutorial, I'll be using the service account. 2. The key file.json is going to be inside. I'll just copy the URL where it's going to be in. The key file, which I have not downloaded yet, I'm going to save it inside my directory, and I'll call the name dbt crash course.json. That's going to be the key file name. The GCP ID, which I don't have right now, I'm just going to call it dbt crash course 10101. Then the dataset name, I don't have it also. I'll call this dbt crash course. For now, threads, 1 or more is fine. 300 by default, and I'm going to be using the US as my desired location. You can choose EU if you want to do that. But before we do the validation, if I do dbt debug, we are going to have an error because we don't have all these keys, no profiles yet set up. So for us to do that, I'm going to go into my BigQuery. I'll go to console.googlecloud.com. And in here, I'm going to go into the BigQuery section, and I'm going to have the BigQuery. Right now, it's defaulting me to a previous project. So, but I want to show you how to set up your your project from the start. So I'm just going to click on the project, and I'll click on New Project. So I have a DBT crash course as predicted before, and I'm going to I'm going to click on create. This is going to create the DBT crash course for me, which we can see the progress on the right hand side, and I'm going to select the project. Now we are in the DBT crash course section. Now in here, if you look at the data set on the left, maybe I should just increase this a little bit. If you look at the dataset explorer on the left, you can see there is no external connections, only the dataset that we have. And this is our GCP ID that we need. So I need to go into my profiles, which I'm going to bring up. This is my profiles.yaml. I have a DBT BigQuery in there. I have the DBT core demo, and I have a DBT crash course, the one that we just created. So if this is your first time of creating a new project with DBT, you only see this as your crash course, the DBT crash course as in your profile. Now, in the project 101 that I created the other time, I'll just replace that with this latest one. Okay. Then I'm using a service account. So I need a JSON file, the key file to connect to my BigQuery. How do I get that? I come to the left in here and I come to the I am an admin. I'm going to look for service account. So in my service account, because I'm in a DBT crash course, I don't have any service account created. So I need to create a new service account. By clicking on create service account, I'm going to have the name of the user that's going to be using the service account name. I'm going to have the Yusuf Ganu as a service account, and I'm going to create and continue. All right. Then the role, I'm going to be using the owner because I am the owner, of course. So if you have any other I am roles and permissions, you can add them to that. But for now, I'll be sticking to the owner. I'll click on continue. I don't need to grant any other additional access to that because I'm the owner. I have majorly or virtually all the access. Okay, I click on OK. Now I have an email, which is the service account that I can use to connect to that. So I just need to click on the email, which is the name. And I go to the key section. I'm going to click on add new key and create a new key for JSON. I click on create. So this is going to create and download a JSON file for me. So I need to move this JSON file into my profiles directory and rename it to DBT crash course. Okay. So I'm going to do that right away. Yeah, this is my DBT profile. And I'm going to just move in the DBT crash course that I just downloaded, the JSON file. All right. I'll just rename this to DBT crash course. All right. DBT crash course. And I'm going to copy the file name, copy JSON as path name to get the full path address. Then I'm going to paste it in here as my key file name. All right. And the data set right now is DBT crash course. We don't have anything yet. And I'll just once that is done, I need to right click and save this particular profile. And I do DBT debug again. If I do DBT debug, it says profile should be none if loading profile completed. Okay. So basically, I need to just remove this once for now. And I save this. It says it's using the profiles or YAML in here, the DBT project. So if I go into my DBT crash course, in my DBT project, I have my DBT crash course. Okay. And if I run this again, everything should be fine. DBT debug. And it's coming up. It says one check failed. Project loading for the following reason. It says it couldn't file. Yeah, of course, because I'm inside the DBT crash course root directory. So I need to go, if you look at the list, I have the DBT crash course. I just need to go into that directory, DBT crash course. Then I do DBT debug again. All right, it says all checks pass. So I'm going to return the ones that I removed because they are for all different projects. I'll just return them. And I am going to test again, DBT debug. Excellent. All checks passed. Now we are good to go. As of this moment, our DBT crash course project has been set up. So different folders for different reasons in here. So I'll just quickly run through each of them. The analysis, when you want to perform some analysis with that. The logs, of course, like the name implies, where your logs are stored. The macros, where you want to have some reusable functions. Models, where your tables and views are going to be sitting in. The seed, if you want to seed the database with initial data. Maybe you want to upload some file, some records into your database. That's what you do. The snapshots, the test, and the DBT project.yaml. This is one of the most important part of the project. So it allows. This is where you wire each of the path to your project. So you have the model part, analysis part. So even if you change the name of each of them, so far you have them correctly set up in here, you should be good. Okay, so now once that is done, we have our DBT project set up. And inside our models, you'll see that we have an example model, which is the first and the second DBT model. If you click on each of them, you'll see that we have the materialized table. We have some scripts in here. I'm just going to reduce this a little bit. We have some scripts in here, and this is the materialized table. So what this means is by the time you are running this particular script, you are going to be materializing or creating this as a table. Then the second one, this is referencing the first model where ID is equals to 1. Okay, but if you look at the project, we have the parts where we say everything inside here and the downstream folders, create them as views. But specifically, if you want to run this particular model, create it as a table. All right. So if I do, so basically on my BigQuery, I'm expecting two things. The first one being a table, the second one being a view. So if I do DBT, I already debug, so I just need DBT run. So if I type DBT run and I click on enter, this is going to tell me what I have. Right now I have two models. I have 4 tests, 0 sources, 394 macros, and these are what I have in my system. So it says invalid dataset ID. Okay, so there is a dataset ID error in here. So it says it must be alphanumeric plus underscore, but it doesn't have this dash should not be there. So I just need to go back into my DBT project. DBT profile. In my profile, so YAML, I have DBT crash course in here. I'm going to change this to underscore. Okay, I'm going to have DBT underscore crash course, and I'm going to DBT run again. All right, so it's starting the run. So we have the first one, which is created successfully, and the second one created as a view. So if we go to our BigQuery again, all right, close this and go to my BigQuery. All right, BigQuery. And in my DBT crash course, if you go to the untitled, you should see a DBT underscore crash course that I just created. So in here, we have a first DBT model as a table, the second one as a view. Make sense? A table and a view. But if I want to convert this also to a view, to a table rather, you come in here, change this guy to maybe a table, for instance, and I save this. So that's how to convert your materialized view to tables. All right. So, but in case you have an error, which I'm going to demonstrate how that works in a second, if you go back in here and I refresh, you should see the two tables inside here. Now let's assume that we want to bring in a custom made model, which is what we are going to be working with in this case anyways. So I'm going to be using the default data set that was provided by DBT. All right, now the DBT data set is not in our BigQuery, we need to add that. So if you click on add, and I click on start project by name, DBT tutorial, DBT tutorial. Okay, and I start this. So this is the DBT tutorial, and this is the data set. Inside this data set, we have data prep, which is Yahoo Shop customer order payments, and inside the Yahoo Shop, you have the view for customers and orders. Then we have a stripe, which is where we have the payment section. Okay. So this is the data set that we're going to be using as for our crash course. Okay. So in here, I will create a new SQL file inside our model, and I'm going to call this customers.sql. All right. So I'm going to have the customers. So I'm going to have with customers as select ID, the first name, the last name, then from where the DBT tutorial .jaffu shop .customers. All right. Then if you look at the customer section, we have the ID, first name, last name. For the orders, we have the ID, user ID, order date, and status. So I'll just quickly run through those ones. I have the orders as select ID, user ID, order date, status from DBT tutorial. I'm gonna have .jaffu shop .orders. Then with these two, which are the two columns that I have in my Jaffu shop, I can just easily create another context CTE from there, and I'm gonna have another CTE, which is going to be customer orders as select user ID, minimum order date as first order, the maximum order date as most recent order, then count of ID as number of orders. From orders, I just need to group by the user ID. All right. So in my final table, I'll say final, another CTE anyways. I have, this is going to be select the, maybe I just have customers, the ID. This is comma, okay. ID customers, the first name, customers dot last name. Then I have customer orders dot first order, customer orders dot most recent order, and then customer orders dot number of orders. All right, from customers, then I'm going to do a left join to customer orders on customer the ID is going to be customer orders dot user ID. I'm just connecting the two tables, joining them on the ID and the user ID. Then in the last script, I'm going to have the select star from final. So this is going to be the final table that is going to be generated from this script. All right. So to continue with this, if I save this up, and inside my model, I have this customers SQL an example. In my DBT project, I'm saying when you're in the models directory, for this project, there's a particular folder called example, and you are materializing everything there as table. Now I want to materialize every other thing as tables. You can specifically specify whether you want to treat a folder as a view or a particular script as a table, regardless of what you want. So you can specify in here. Anyways, all right. So the only thing that I need to do is DBT run. So it's creating a customers, and it was able to create this successfully. We have the first, second models, and it's creating them successfully too. And you can see everything is completed successfully. So if I go to my BigQuery and I do a refresh in here, you will see that inside my DBT crash course, my customers, if I click on that and I do preview, you can see the data. And these are the data that are coming from the Jaffle shop, and both the orders and the customers. Okay, so now once this is done, I wanted to show you if I now want to change these customers, this customer SQL, this one, if I want to change this to a view, all I just need to do is change that to a view, and I save this up and I run again. Now I'm going to have an error simply because it's trying to create a view, but it already created a table. All right. So how do I fix that? The way to fix that is just to, you can either delete it manually and run it again, or you run with DBT full refresh and it will be dropped for you. So if I do DBT run and I have a full refresh, now the table will be dropped and recreated in a view manner. So you can see it was able to create a view this time around. Okay, so if I go to my BigQuery and I come in here and I do a refresh, you will see inside the DBT crash course, customers is now a view. And this is how it looks like. Okay, this is the schema. But right now we need it as a table. Okay, so I'll do a table and I do DBT full refresh. Good. Now, what if I have some data that I want to be used as my seed data into my DBT? Okay, how do I do that? I'll just quickly go for one of my old projects. If you are a regular follower of this channel, you should recall we had a project, and I'm going to use that one of the projects in here. I'll just use one of the projects that we did in the last course, and I'll paste it inside the seed. Okay, and I'll say, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please click the like and subscribe to the channel right now. You know, most people charge a lot for this, but I'm doing it for free. So please support me by clicking on the subscribe and like. All right, so this is the stadium cleaned data from our previous course. All right, we have the rank stadium and the rest of the information that has been cleaned in our previous course. So I just wanted to use this as our seed. Okay, I just changed the name, and I'll change the name to stadium cleaned. Okay, because that's going to be the table name. So the way to do that is by simply running DBT. Once you put your seed inside the CSV or the Excel file inside your seed directory, all you just need to do is run DBT seed. Okay? No, the seed is correct, not seeds. And you can see that change. I have 4 tests, 1 seed inside here, and it's now processing the seed data into my BigQuery. All right, if I refresh this now, you will see that in here I have my stadium cleansed, and if I click on preview, everything in here is uploaded. Cool, right? All right. So that's how to get data to your BigQuery. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to write some tests based on that. Okay. So even though I don't have a model yet for the stadium cleaned, we can create one. Okay. And I'll just quickly run a test for our customer SQL, and I'll give it that the stadium cleans as a challenge so we can see more people using DBT and writing tests for that. Okay, so the way to do that is inside your model, you right click that and click create a file. I'll call it schema.yaml. In your YAML file, it's having the same structure as something like this. I'll just copy this so I don't, retype everything again and again. So the name of this one is going to be customers, the same name as your SQL. And I'm going to call this customers table. All right, so the columns that we want to test for, if you look at our customers table in here, we have a schema of ID, first name, last name, first order date, most recent, and the rest. So we can test for ID to be the primary key, which is of course going to be unique and not null. That's the first test. The second one is we can have the name as a first name. Then we have a test for this. The test is also not null. Okay. Now, if I run this again, DBT test, and you should see everything is passing. The last name is passing, the customer ID, and everything is okay. Now we can run DBT run, and we should be good. To generate documentation is as easy as just typing DBT docs generate. Okay, so this is going to generate the documentation based on the models that we have and everything, and you can see where everything is written to. You can see it's written in DBT crash course, target, and catalog.json. So for you to serve that and view the documentation and see how it looks like, all you need to do is just DBT docs serve. And this is going to serve and run this on the browser. This is how it's going to look like. And you can see this nice and beautiful documentation that has been generated for us. So we have some packages here, DBT crash course. And if you have any package installed, something like DBT utils, DBT date, DBT expectations, and the rest, whatever plugins you install, you are going to see them here. So if you look at the models, the customers, you can see the model customers here, and you can see the tag, the number of rows that are there, the column, and the ones that are referencing them. You have the text in here. This is the source code, and you can see the compiled version of the code as well. And in the database, you can see on the DBI, it looks like the stadium's clean. You see the one that we brought in later. And yeah, this is how you can see each of them. You can see the description, the columns, the reference by, and the code. All right, so that's that on that particular documentation side. To have a recap of what we've done so far, we set up a new project called DBT Crash Course. We created our DBT using the DBT init command, and then we set up our BigQuery on the cloud where we have our permissions and the role. We downloaded the key and we linked our DBT project to this particular BigQuery. In our code, we also set up a model. We validated the model and we wrote a test to test each of the columns of that model. I have also shown you how you can see data to your database. If you have CSV file that you want to use to populate your BigQuery DB, you can use that to populate them in the sys section. You can also write some more complicated test cases by using the default DBT lab utils package and other custom packages that have been developed by the community. Let me know if you would like to see more unit testing and tests in general, and probably how to automate this DBT project so you can have a pipeline where you have your code set up somewhere, you automate the process of testing, and you do the deployment to your BigQuery data warehouse. So let me know if you would like that in the comment section. By the way, if you have not subscribed to the channel, kindly click on the subscribe button, like, share. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.